I was 14 when my school became a battleground and I had to. In a small border town in the Balkans, in the autumn of 1992, Marko Petrovic, only 14 years old, attended Bratstvo I Jedinstvo Secondary School when the ethnic conflict devastating the region reached the doors of his classroom. Son of Vera, a literature teacher at the school itself, and Dragoslav, a mechanic who had left to defend a neighboring town, Marko was living the last days of a childhood that would be brutally interrupted. When paramilitaries took the school building as a strategic base, transforming familiar corridors into trenches and the library into an arsenal, Marko found himself forced to protect not only his mother, but also Ana Kovac, his 13-year-old classmate whose Serbian parents had left her hidden in the school when they fled the town. Among them was old Professor Miloš, 67 years old, who had refused to abandon his books and now guarded secrets that could save or condemn them all. During 5 days of siege, Marko would discover that growing up is not a choice when death lurks in every corridor, when each decision can mean life or death for those you love, and when a 14-year-old boy must find courage where once there was only fear. The sound of gunshots still echoes in my head whenever I pass in front of a school. It doesn't matter if it's children playing in the courtyard or the bell ringing the end of classes. My whole body contracts, and for an instant, I'm 14 again, running through corridors I knew by heart, but which had suddenly become a deadly labyrinth. Today I'm 36 years old.
I live in a city where no one knows my real name.
Where no one knows that once, when I was still a child, I had to make a decision that ages me every day since then. It was October 1992. War had finally arrived in our small border town, after months of dancing around us like a hungry animal waiting for the right moment to attack. My mother Vera taught literature at the same school where I studied, Bratstvo I Jedinstvo Secondary School, ironically called Brotherhood and Unity at a time when brothers were killing brothers. She always said that words were more powerful than bullets. I discovered in those 5 days of October that she was wrong. On Monday, we began to hear the first distant shots during math class. Teacher Milika stopped in the middle of her explanation about equations and fell silent, chalk still raised at the blackboard, listening. All of us listening. The dry, repeated sound that was beginning to approach. "Keep copying," she murmured, but her voice was trembling. Ana Kovac was sitting at the desk next to me, as always. Her parents had fled 3 days before, Serbs who left when they learned that Bosnian paramilitaries were coming. But Ana had refused to go. "This is my school," she told them. "These are my friends." Her parents left her, a 13-year-old girl, alone, because they believed a school would be a safe place. As we all believed. On Tuesday morning, when we arrived for classes, there were armed men at the gate. Different uniforms, faces we didn't recognize, weapons that seemed too big to be real. One of them, with a scar running from his ear to the corner of his mouth, stopped us. "School is closed," he said. "Go home." But my mother was inside. And Ana had nowhere to go. "My mother is a teacher here," I said, trying to sound older than I was. The man looked at me as if he were deciding between slapping me or ignoring me. He chose to ignore me. "There are no more teachers here, boy. Only soldiers." That's when we heard the scream. A sharp, feminine scream, coming from inside the building. Ana grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks. "Is that your mother's voice?" she whispered. It wasn't. But it could have been. We spent the rest of the day hidden in the woods behind the school, watching men enter and leave the building. They carried boxes, furniture, equipment. They were establishing themselves. Our school had become their base. On Wednesday, we could no longer see my mother through the teacher's room windows. Ana began to cry, a silent cry that was worse than any scream. Her lips were blue with cold, and she hadn't eaten anything but the apples we managed to get from the Ivanović family's abandoned orchard. "I need to get in there," I said. "You're going to die," she replied. "Maybe. But I can't leave my mother alone with them." That's when Professor Miloš appeared among the trees, walking slowly with his cane, as if he were just taking a morning stroll. He was 67 years old and had been teaching history longer than I had been alive. He always carried a book in his pocket, Andrich, Krliza, sometimes Dostoevsky. "Children," he said, approaching, "you shouldn't be here." "Professor," Ana stood up quickly, "the men took over the school. We don't know where the other teachers are." Professor Miloš's eyes hardened. He looked at the school building, then at us. "I know where they are," he finally said. "They're trapped in the basement, along with some students who couldn't get out in time." My stomach dropped. My mother. He nodded gravely.
Your mother too. For a moment, no one said anything.
The wind swayed the tree leaves, and in the distance we could hear voices of paramilitaries shouting orders at each other. There's a way to get in, Professor Milosh said slowly. But it's dangerous. And it will require you to do things that children shouldn't have to do. Anna and I looked at each other. We hadn't felt like children for days.
What things?
I asked. Professor Milosh took the book from his pocket. It was The Bridge on the Dina by Andrić. He opened it and took out a folded paper. This is the map of the tunnels under the school. They were built during World War II, when the partisans used the building as a hideout. Most people forgot they exist. He pointed to a line on the paper. This passage leads directly to the basement. But there are guards. And to distract them, someone will have to create a diversion outside.
What kind of diversion?
Anna asked. Professor Milosh hesitated. The kind that can hurt people. The kind that can kill people. I was 14 years old.
Anna was 13.
A week before, our biggest worry was Friday's chemistry test. Professor, I said, what are you suggesting? He sighed deeply. I'm suggesting that you decide whether you're children who are going to run away and hope the adults solve this, or whether you're people who are going to do whatever it takes to save those you love. That night, hidden in the cold, damp tunnel under the school, Anna held my hand so tightly that I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. We could hear voices above us, laughter, occasional screams, heavy footsteps. Professor Milosh had given us 3 homemade explosives made with fertilizer and fuel. Throw these into the teacher's room at 10:15, he said. That will make everyone run there. You'll have maybe 5 minutes to open the basement door and get everyone out. And then? I asked. Then you run. All of you.
And don't look back.
At exactly 10:15, I threw the first explosive through the teacher's room window.
The explosion made the floor shake under our feet.
Screams.
Running footstep.
Orders being shouted. Anna threw the second one. More screams. When I threw the third, we heard something that made us stop, a scream of agony. A human scream, real, from someone who was being hurt.
Marco, Anna whispered, we hurt Someone.
I didn't answer because I didn't know what to say. Because we had hurt someone. Intentionally.
We ran to the basement door.
It was locked, but Professor Milosh had given us the keys. He had kept them for years, since when he was responsible for building maintenance. The door opened with a loud groan. Inside, in the dark, there were 16 people. Teachers, school staff, some older students. And my mother. She was sitting in the corner, hugging teacher Milika. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. Marco, she whispered. My son, what are you doing here? Getting you out of here, I said. But when we started climbing the stairs, we heard footsteps coming down toward us. Heavy, hurried footsteps. They had discovered us. Run, shouted Professor Milosh, who had appeared at the top of the stairs. Run now. What happened in the next few minutes gets confused in my memory like fragments of a nightmare. Screams. Shots. Professor Milosh falling. My mother pushing me forward, screaming for me not to look back.
Anna stumbled.
When I turned to help her, I saw the man with the scar pointing a gun at her. I was 14 years old. And I made a decision that haunts me to this day. I didn't go back to help her. I ran. Like my mother told me to do. Like a coward. The last sound I heard was Anna screaming my name. We managed to get out, my mother, me, and 8 more people. Professor Milosh died on the stairs. Anna I never saw again. For years, I convinced myself that she had escaped by another route. That she was alive somewhere, hating me for abandoning her, but alive. Until, 15 years later, I found her name on a list of civilian victims of the conflict. Anna Kovac, 13 years old. Died in October 1992. In the school where we played, where we studied, where she decided to stay because they were her friends. Where I abandoned her. Today, when I wake up at dawn hearing shots that don't exist, it's not the sound of war that haunts me. It's the sound of my own cowardice. It's knowing that a 14-year-old boy had to choose between saving his life and saving his soul. And chose wrong. War taught me many things. It taught me that schools can become battlefields. That teachers can die protecting students. That children can become soldiers without ever picking up a weapon. But the hardest lesson I learned wasn't about war. It was about myself. It was about discovering that when death is looking you in the eyes, you discover who you really are. And sometimes, that discovery is worse than death itself.